Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's comes at us from a person from Germany. Hi Bryan, please react to and analyze Abdurehim Heyt, Umid. Unfortunately, I can provide only the barest of context. He's a popular Uyghur musician from Jiangxing. Unfortunately, it's difficult to find out where he is or whether he is okay. The instrument he plays in his performance is a dutar, a two-stringed lute popular in traditional music in Iran and Central Asia. The recording quality, both in audio and video, is rather poor, but the audio at least might be sufficient for a critical reaction. I know next to nothing about the musical tradition informing the song. The title is apparently in the Uyghur language or one of its dialects, but I'm not exactly sure what it means. Hope is a plausible guess, as the word seems to closely resemble words for hope in Turkic and Persian, languages with links to Uyghur. But the actual word for hope in Uyghur is spelled slightly different. It might just be a typo, though. This is a lot of context. I'm hoping it all makes a bit more sense to me as we get into the track, but I'm excited to dive into this. I don't think we've listened to anything with a dutar before. I don't know that I've even heard the instrument on my own. So let's dive into this and see what Abdurehim Heyt is bringing to the table today. Really like the percussive sound of striking the body alongside the strings. It gives just a little bit of extra bite to the accented notes. The shifting rhythmic pulse is very nice to listen to. Ooh. The rhythmic pulse isn't... I can't intuit it naturally. I'm still trying to figure out what's going on there. Heavy use of pedal tone throughout this too. Some of these chords too. Part of this song likes to burst forward with movement. Other parts are happy just standing where they are. It's nice contrast. A really good showcase of the pedal tone use. no pedal tone, bringing it back. He likes to speed up into those faster strums on the higher pitched, more dissonant harmonies, as if the tension of the harmony deserves the more aggressive, faster playing to really heighten it. Yeah! I mean, the dude's been killing it, but this is like a very palatable jam right here. Looking to see if the body is like wavy, or if it's, you know, smooth, if there's any maybe I'll find the words to describe that better. Oh, it is! There's like grooves in it. Was that really 8 minutes? Holy cow, dude, that went by fast. Dude's tearing it up. All right, so I don't have any context to this aside from what I heard. If anyone wants to weigh in on maybe the cultural element of performing with this instrument or with this particular sound. Maybe there's something that goes along with it. I'm all ears for that. Let me know in the comment section. I'm going to come at this from a Western perspective and mostly talk about what is happening in this song. But first, I want to talk about the instrument. I find this really interesting. It's just 2 strings. That makes for a very thin neck. And one of the things I noticed that is a benefit of this is that it's very easy to wrap the entire hand around so that you have plenty of room for your fingers to use the bottom string, while your thumb can wrap around and play on the top string. This song in particular, I don't know if this is common for this type of music or for this instrument, but there's a lot of pedal tone in here, where the moving line will be on the higher string, and the chordal line, which frequently showed up here as a pedal tone, just a single note being played over and over, is on the lower one. Now, most of that, and you can actually see in the video, a lot of this is open string, where he's playing notes on the higher string, and the lower one is just whatever tone it is if you strum without pressing anywhere down on it. We get a lot of that. But you'll also see throughout him use his thumb to hold specific frets while he's playing the melody too, and it allows him to change the pedal tone, the lower notes. That's going to create a little bit of harmonic movements for the song. It's why it doesn't feel completely static, even though a majority of it is just this one tone that sits underneath all the melodies. So that's one thing I noticed about it, and it's kind of interesting too, because back when I took guitar courses at university, one of the big things was that it was bad form to use your thumb for the lowest string. And here, maybe it's just his style, but it's on full display here. And there's plenty of guitarists who have done it too, who have gone on to, be large, famous guitarists. It's one of those things where it's more of an academic faux pas more than something that you should never do. But I do like seeing it show up in phenomenal pieces like this, where it just wouldn't be possible to do what they're doing. Well, actually, in this case, it would be. You could easily use your second finger, like your primary finger at times to play that pedal tone. But there's just as many places where he's moving really quickly on the second string. There's no way he would be able to hold the lower notes without having the thumb there. So, yeah, very cool stuff there. The other thing I noticed was the ridges. The body of the guitar is ribbed. And I really freaking love this. I'm really curious if this instrument always has a ribbed body, or if this is something specific to his Dutar, because it provides a rhythmic thing. When he's strumming, there are some times that he'll put the extra weight down and push down to the body and rub his nails, run his nails over the ribs to create this extra percussive sound. It's a clattering sound. I don't know how to describe it, but it's actually very close to the Latin American instrument a güiro, which is usually a cylinder with ribs on it, and you usually take a wooden stick and you run the stick down the ribs. And that same exact sound is here, because the principle is pretty much the same too. It's a wooden ribbed body and some sort of device running along the ribs. And it's really cool hearing the dexterity, the control of being able to strum just the strings or push a little bit further and run your nails along the body as well. And it works too, because that means that the louder percussive ones, where you are playing faster, you're going to run your nail across the ribs faster in order to create a louder sound for the each individual sound to overlap more. So you got to go quickly across the ribbing. That usually happens at faster places, which also means that the picking is going to be harder too across the strings, and you're actually going to get accented melodic hits alongside the percussive sound. It's just a really cool combination to help accentuate and sell these bigger attacks in the melody. And it all comes together into something that maybe it is just the compression of this lower fidelity recording, but it comes together in a very unique sound that has a singularity to it. It doesn't feel like a percussive and a melodic sound. It just feels like this is what the instrument makes. It's a very cool conjoining of timbres. So those are the two things that I picked out about the instrument, and I think they are very cool. And now I think more guitars, acoustic guitars, need ribbed bodies. Although I suppose when you think about like a typical Western acoustic guitar, I think the strings sit too high up above the body to really do this. It makes me want to go back to this and get a better peek at the... Actually, maybe I will. See if I can find... Yeah, the video's, I think, too low quality. I think the strings are closer to the body, though. There's less of a gap between where the body of the guitar is and where the strings sit above it. And so it's less of a distance. It's easier to push through to get it. Whereas I think on a typical Western acoustic guitar, your standard 6-string guitar, I think there's more of a gap. And I don't think it would actually work as well. We would have to reconfigure how guitar bridges work and where the strings sit, and probably just like a custom acoustic, I think, at that point. If anyone has any insight, maybe if they've tried to do this, let me know. Is it possible that we could easily rub underneath the strings of a typical standard Western acoustic guitar? And if so, I really hope some people start being inspired by this and ribbing the bodies. Although I guess it's going to change it too, because it's going to change the shape of the body. Because the way that Western acoustic guitars work is that big hole in the body, it has a really dumb name. I think it's literally called like the sound hole or something like that. Anyways, when you strub the instrument, the sound waves go in there, they bounce around, and then they come back out again. And that's why acoustic guitars can get so loud. This doesn't have that. So if you change the shape of the body, though, you're going to change the sound of the instrument when you're dealing with an acoustic guitar. That isn't going to be an issue here because the sound isn't going into the body to be reflected to come back out. So you might have to put a different board on top of the body where the ribbing will be, rather than being a part of the body itself. I'm getting off topic here, though, getting into like some hypotheses about stuff that has nothing to do with this. Musically, I find this to be interesting. First of all, I had a tough time finding the pulse through a lot of this, the general phrasing of it. We definitely hit a 4/4 somewhere in the middle during that jam part that I really liked, but I found to be a bit more palatable for a general audience. The final section also seemed to fit into a 4/4, but the first, I don't know, like 3 minutes maybe, I had a real tough time. I still don't know what time signature we're in. When he would shift, because I think it's pretty easy to find where a proposed beat 1 might be. I can feel where his patterns start. I just can't ever find any consistency to anticipate when that start comes back, when we get back to an idea. It seems to be random. Sometimes they're in groups of 5, sometimes groups of 6 and 7. Sometimes they were between what I was counting, 5. Oh, geez, we've switched over again. It was a little bit past 6, but I didn't get to count 7. So maybe we're working in like 13/8 in some places. I'd be really curious if maybe there's just a crossing over of bars, and maybe it's all 4/4, but we're going to work with like a 5-beat phrase here, and then a 6-beat phrase here, and then another 5-beat, and wouldn't you know it, that's 16 beats. You can divide that up into 4 bars of 4 beats. But it just doesn't feel like 4 because we have these odder groupings. So that might be what's going on there, and I just never caught the pattern. But I was very lost there rhythmically. But I'm very impressed by the rhythmic writing on top of just, the phrasing of it all. But it's this push and pull of playing slower notes and then faster notes, and then slower notes and faster notes, and it just creates this nice ebb and flow throughout a majority of this track, of the majority of the first 3 minutes. That feels like tension and release, push and pull, breathing in and breathing out. It feels very natural, and I enjoy that. There's also the technicality of the entire right hand strumming part, which speeds up and slows down. It moves from what sounds like maybe single finger picking into multi finger picking, where we kind of have speed of consistency, just like using maybe your one fingernail like you would a pick and just rubbing it up and down, running it up and down against the strings. And then other times kind of bringing in more of like a Spanish guitar speed of using all of your fingers to create a lot of strumming at one time. And kind of switching back and forth between these while also having these tempo shifts too, it sounds like. There's just a lot of metric stuff going on here beyond the time signature stuff that I'm not sure what's going on there. Just the feeling of time is constantly in flux, and that requires a lot of dexterity and precision to pull that off, and practice. I'm sure at this point it's all muscle memory, but it was probably not easy to get to this point, and I find that to be increasingly intriguing. Interesting is probably the right word for that. Now, aside from the right hand, there's also the left hand stuff going on. The dude's kind of shredding at points. His left hand can go absolutely crazy. And the melodies it's good. I'm going to get to the melody in a second, but it's a very catchy song, I think. And there's a lot of times that it grabs my attention and just doesn't let me go. And I'm kind of curious how much of this is improvised and how much of it is pre-composed. There definitely feels like a sense of variation on a theme. Much of the opening 3 minutes, actually in every section, it feels like there is a core sound that then gets modified and tweaked over time. And I think that's where we get this concept, or at least I think there's a concept of theme and variation throughout this song in all three parts of it. And a lot of that comes down to, I think, personally, left-hand playing. Starting out and playing a bass form of the theme and then spicing it up. Maybe putting in more moving tones. Instead of just the key notes, now we have notes between them that help move between, add some fluidity to the melody. And then we'll just add some complexity, speed it up, put even more notes into it, that kind of idea. So that the core idea just becomes more impressive on a spectacle level over time. Not to say that this is spectacle playing. Maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe this is a cultural form that they use of starting out small and then increasingly getting more complex. But I do find it to be spectacular to watch. It is much like shredding in metal guitars. Just watching this guy play and the precision and speed and skill on display, particularly with the left hand, is impressive. So I do kind of find it leans a little bit more into the spectacle side of things, even if that's not the intention of it. And I'm impressed with that. Now, harmony, melody. I do notice that there's a shift between tension and release here. And a lot of the times he moves to tensor dyads. And a dyad is just a chord made out of two notes, which only got two strings. That's the biggest chord we can get on this. But he usually goes up to these higher tones, brings in a bit of dissonance between the two notes, and plays faster. I had mentioned this during the reaction, but I do think that it is a conscious idea to add more intensity to it. It already feels tense harmonically. We're going to add tension rhythmically by just speeding up the song, playing these notes faster. I think that works because when he goes back down to lower, more stable dyads and slows down the hand, it really feels like we were holding our breath for this whole time and we can finally let it out. We can finally breathe again. He does this over and over in the first 3 minutes of the song. We return to a little bit more of it towards the end of this song. We don't see too much of it in the middle. The middle is hyper focused on melody. And what I find interesting, particularly about this section, but kind of throughout all of it, is this kind of could appeal to a metal listener. Does anybody else feel that way? There are certainly some chords in here, some parts of melodies that feel distinctly non-Western. I can't place a specific region on them, but they're not typical to my ears. But there are some passages too that I'm just thinking, running pedal tone on your low E or D string on a metal guitar, and then playing these riffs that's playing on the second string here on the second string of your electric guitar with a metal tone would actually sound pretty metal. I'm not saying that this person is influenced by heavier rock or metal, but there's definitely metal adjacent ideas in here, regardless of how this person came around to composing them. And I do find, generally speaking, especially with the faster playing on here, I've already kind of mentioned how there is a parallel to metal shredding going on, that I do think this could appeal to a typically metal music listener. Harmonically, melodically, skill-wise, yeah. It's not, like I said, it's not consistent. I wouldn't say that, hey, this is a metal song on a Dutar. No, not at all. But there are certainly passages in it where I'm like, oh, that would be pretty. Honestly, this whole thing would be pretty sick on a distorted electric guitar. But there are passages that I'm like, dude, it would just fit so nicely. It wouldn't sound out of place at all. And I find that to be really interesting. Part of that is probably just because y'all have me so inundated with rock and metal. It's all I listen to these days. My life was not always like that. Now I listen to rock and metal daily. And so that, does influence where my mind tends to go when I hear sounds that are familiar to me. But yeah, I'm curious if any of you primarily come to the channel for the metal reactions. Did you enjoy this? Is there anything that stuck out to you? Is there anything that felt distinctly metal about this? Any specific moments? Maybe you had this thought while listening to it as well. I'm curious if I'm the only one here, basically. And I think that's going to be about it for this one. I do want to add, though, just on a small harmonic narrative thing here. The beginning of the song is hyper focused on tension and release. The middle of the song, the middle half. I said that during a stream once, didn't I? The middle half of the song. The middle third is focused on almost something dancey and bouncy. There's something infectious about it. This might be the hope that the title alludes to. It does feel more positive and uplifting than anything else. But the final third of the song is it's sorrowful. If this song is translated to hope, it doesn't seem like the song is too hopeful. Maybe hopeful to a point of wanting things to be better, but maybe not necessarily believing in that hope. And it does end on a bit more of a somber tone, at least to me, and kind of bringing in some darkness into the track. But like I said at the beginning, I'm coming at it from a Western mind. Maybe these chords mean something totally different to him. Maybe in his culture, these chords are positive and hopeful and, genuinely bright, where I hear a lot of darkness and tension in them. But these are my thoughts on Abdurehim Heyt's, what is this track called? I don't know. It's called Umid. I don't know how I forgot that. It's a pretty simple word. These are my thoughts. What are yours? Did you enjoy this? Is there anything that stood out to you? I posed a few questions during the reaction and the analysis. If you want to answer those, please put all of that and any other thoughts you might have down into the comment section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today, but I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.